Imagine a young woman in the early 1900s working her passage across the Atlantic as a maid. She spends the summer as a maid in New York City, learns a little English, and works her way home to Sweden again. She returns to New York the following summer, but this time, as she returns home, she speaks and writes in English. As she sails out of New York Harbor and passes the great lady, the Statue of Liberty, she promised to herself that one day she will give birth to a child here in America, because she knows this is indeed the land of opportunity. Back home, she marries and has 4 children. Still planning to bring her family to America, her older unmarried brother immigrates to America, where he homesteads 40 acres and becomes a naturalized citizen. He sponsors her and her family. As she walks through the gates of Ellis Island in her early 40s, she inwardly sighs about the promise she made to herself more than 20 years earlier. Little did she know she would indeed have a child born in this country. This is a true story, and excuse me, not one from my mother, but one from my Farmor, or my father's mother. My father was the one child born in America. Her story of traveling from Sweden, not once, but 3 times, is a story similar to many other mothers and grandmothers. These women who traveled across oceans of water or fields of knee-high grass are our storytellers. Through their stories, they've kept their families united, their communities strong. Within these stories are woven endless traditions, beliefs, and perseverance. Attitudes of, yes, you can do what you want, regardless of the adversity that lies ahead. I was so fortunate that I had a special bond with my Farmor, Hilma. Now, to look at my Swedish grandmother, you might be taken back. She was short, under 5 foot, and standing next to my Swedish grandfather of 6'7". They were indeed a strange-looking pair. However, no one ever doubted who ruled the roost. As a young child, I spent my summers on the family farm. As I grew up, I learned how to make Swedish pancakes, sing and dance to Swedish songs, and even swear a little in Swedish. Hilma was always telling me about her childhood in Sweden, where life was so much harder. Here, she said, you could do anything you wanted, provided you knew what you wanted. As I listened to her, I remember looking around at the tiny kitchen in the main cabin. There was a cast iron wood-burning stove that heated the entire cabin, a white enameled bucket that held the cold pump water taken from the well about 200 feet away, and a small refrigerator. She looked at her kitchen through different eyes. For her, it was the best in the world, because it was better than what she had left back in Sweden. I so wish I had her clarity at such a young age. She knew what she wanted, and through years of planning, she had that dream realized. One attribute that I carry with me was her attitude about others. She was always thinking about helping others. Hilma did not care if someone had more money than she did. She would gladly bake some fresh limpa or Spritz cookies. I remember walking down the tree-lined driveway and crossing the country road to take something to Mrs. Jardine, who was not the healthiest woman. Now, Mrs. Jardine and her husband probably could have bought and sold my grandparents' farm 2 to 3 times over. And my grandmother knew this, but it did not matter. Another gift Hilma left me was her appreciation of life. I never heard her complain once about her bones aching as she rode her back 5 miles to town and back, even into her mid-80s. She had that suck it up, get over it attitude without the lecture. From her wisdom, I've been able to share stories with my own daughter, Katie. My tough, no-nonsense, motherly attitude that some of you may have already heard about comes from Hilma. And I have passed this down to my daughter as well. Even though I'm only 50% Swedish by blood, I am 100% Swedish by heritage and attitude. For good or bad, that Swedish attitude has also been given to my daughter. The stories we hear from our mothers and our grandmothers are some of the most important listening we will ever experience. So I can only encourage you to listen to your mother and grandmothers. Remember those stories. Share them with your daughters, sons, and grandchildren, for your life will be so much richer from that listening and sharing.